Right, well, we've got a very interesting subject, this is, and I like this, because how to find alpha, and we've had a bit of a laugh about this, but like, what actually is alpha? And I think that's a good place for us to start it, because we very often in the crypto space talk about the next big thing, the next big gem, where to find information, but let's ask the experts. Danielle, we're going to start off with you. What is alpha?
Alpha for me is finding the little golden nuggets. So, things like new narratives, new blockchains, what's new and hot, what's the new trend that's gonna, make the bull market go parabolic.
How about yourself?
I think it's information that's generally not known by the masses and is only known by a select few. And maybe that information will do as you said, or maybe it's something that is an element or a niche that enables you to make money. Maybe it isn't a narrative, maybe it isn't a project, maybe it's a technique or a method.
And how about yourself?
From my perspective, I completely agree with BiT SHaMaN. It is insider information. It's information that the average Joe that didn't pry around a bit too hard doesn't have access to. So in a sense of what is alpha, it comes from, a better question will probably be, where does it come from? And it comes from connections. It's from meeting everybody that you see here at these events. That's how you get it. It's from just connecting with other people.
I think that was a really great way for us to start this panel before we introduce ourselves, because it probably shows the range of kind of opinions we've got straight away in the space. So why don't we introduce ourselves, tell us who you are, maybe a bit of the things you've done in the space, and explain what your community maybe do. Let's start with you, Daniel.
So I run a social media company called Crush Media, but I started a personal brand called Crypto Crush over on TikTok, where I help educate people in crypto and Web3. I got into crypto when I was 17, so quite early on. I had to get my dad to buy me Bitcoin, but it was at the top of the bull market in 2018. And ever since then, I've just been obsessed with, tech and crypto, and I've just been scaling my portfolio, my personal brand, educating and helping Web3 companies.
Love it, love it. How about yourself?
My name's BiT SHaMaN, as you know. I founded the Gem Hunters in 2017. We research and review startup crypto projects. We're a community primarily. We help educate people. It's all informative. I also have a TikTok where I help educate people on a more personal level and self-improvement, mindset, goals, vision, and just improving generally who you are as a person as well.
Love it.
From in my case, I don't know, generally when I go to these rooms, half of the people hate me and then half of the people like me. It is always the case whereby I seem for some reason to be controversial. I don't think I am, but I must be. I think I've pissed off a lot of people, like probably in the bear market when it all kicked off, it's completely my fault. I apologize for the bear market. But yeah, I started YouTube in 2016 and then continued making YouTube videos, got pretty popular in the most recent bull market, and then it all went how it went, and now we are where we are. So it's been an interesting ride, but overall it's been, exciting, and I'm still here, so it's worthwhile. I think crypto is a growing industry, but just growing slower.
Absolutely love that. I mean, from Bitget's perspective, obviously we're very proud to serve our UK customers and consumers. We're fully respectful of the regulations coming into play later this week, actually, which is rather sad. And we're looking forward to seeing the government and potentially more positive changes in the future that allows us to do nicer things, hopefully very, very soon. So let's move on to the next question. Let's talk about alpha. And alpha, what like, for me, is it making money? What is it like? We spoke about this before when we were outside, didn't we? How do you actually define alpha in your community? And give me some examples of some of the things you've done in the last couple of weeks, maybe months.
As I was saying before, I think alpha is not just projects or narratives. It's everything. It's you finding a niche or a method or a technique or understanding something the masses don't generally understand. And normally, the way that I refer to crypto is it's like an iceberg. 90% of what's happening is under the surface, and 90% of people are only seeing 10%, which is on the surface. To find that alpha, you have to actually look under the surface. And if you do that, then you'll start seeing that what's been built in this space, the infrastructure, the logistics, all of the alpha, as we're saying now, the places to make money is actually under the surface, and that's where you'll find the community. So I'm preaching to people that you've got to be part of a community. That's where everyone's talking. That's where everyone's sharing information, just like the Martini Guy just said before. So I think being part of a community is really important, because that's where everybody's sharing ideas, and that's where the foundations of everything. And this whole space is driven by community. So I think communities are underrated, so to speak.
That probably brings us on to a really great point, and no better to speak to about communities than yourself. You've probably got one of the, if not the biggest English communities when it comes to crypto saving expert out there, providing education to people. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about it and how you highlight Alpha?
Yeah, so basically, one of the biggest issues that I found in the last bull run was coordinating my community, which became split across 6, 7, 8 different groups. Nobody was, people were listening to each other, and then they would start fighting against each other. So the idea behind Crypto Saving Expert was to collate the community, bring them all into one place, and then educate them with all of the information that's on the website. It's all, most of it's free. There is paid tiers to it, but the bulk of all of the basic stuff that you can use to learn and grow your own portfolio, make the correct decisions, it's all free on the website. If you want to then go further and then from that, I'm not trying to advertise, you do whatever you want, but you can use TMG 45 for 45% off. But basically, education, I think, is one of the things that everybody lacked in the last bull run. It's what caused the worst decisions possible, the lack of profit taking, the lack of sensible decision making. Because communities get carried away, and you'll know from your own communities, like when people make a lot of money, they get too happy, too excited, and then they don't take profit. And this is the thing that you see every time. And you can teach that into a community by having everybody on the same page all the time. So CSE's community is much smaller, which I think is quite good at the moment, because you have a very smaller group of people which are much more active within that. And so the general things that they come up with are generally quite good, because you've got people from all different areas of crypto. But my overall community, like the larger TMD community, it's hell.
They give you a tough time, do they?
Oh, yes.
Well, I don't know if that's deserved sometimes or not. Well,
definitely sometimes it's...
But let's just touch on that, because when we're talking about education, we're talking about informing people around potential alpha or positions or things that you're potentially looking to trade. Like, how does that come with responsibility, and how have you managed that in the past? Yeah, if that's okay.
All right. Say that again.
So, like, when it comes to like giving people pieces of information, little nuggets that you found, you call it inside information. We're calling it alpha today.
Yep.
Like, how's the responsibility around that? So, like, when we're telling people, okay, I've gotten to this bit of intel,
right.
Like, how do we kind of? I think this is. I'm not the
so
FCA. Don't worry.
No. This is. Well, I mean, the FCA is going to stop us all from talking next week anyway. We're all shunned and banished from the country. It's hell. What a terrible group of people they are. But essentially, yeah, when talking about alpha, so when I find something, for example, I these days have become a lot more professional about it. So it used to be that I'd just bang it in a Telegram group, and then people do what they do, and then prices go crazy, and it's all my fault. These days, what I tend to do is I issue a research report via Crypto Saving Expert Discord group or via my own community. I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, I issue a research report. So these days I tend to do like a 10, 20-page research report on something. So rather than just saying, hey, I found that this coin is listing on this exchange soon, I will then, I mean, exchange listings don't do anything these days, do they? They don't, they cause maybe a small pump from a market maker, and then it's all over instantly. So all that, like, it used to be great with the Coinbase pumps and everything. They were amazing. When a coin lists on Coinbase, and it's like a 6x instantly. And you used to be able to find that by watching the back end of like Coinbase's software, and you could see when they'd added a new coin to it, and then you know that they're going to deploy that coin at some point, so you just buy a bunch of it. And that's how everyone used to trade like inside on Coinbase, and it wasn't difficult. So that stuff was all like a lot more secure, I think, than it used to be. But yeah, how to share it? It's very dangerous sharing information like that, because it can really spread, and then sometimes if it's not true, or for example, you might get it from a source, and I'll go, my source says this, and then my source is wrong, even though generally they're right, then it's all your fault. So you've got to be very careful in the way that you put forward information.
I think you deserve a lot more respect than you probably give yourself, because I brought that up for a reason, and I've seen the reports that you compile, and Okay, in the past and in the bull run, everybody just wants information very fast. And I think as a creator, it's probably very easy for you to go, okay, I've got this source, I'm just going to post it. And you probably just back it and you pray that everything goes well. And God forbid it doesn't, then you're going to get the backlash. But I think the reports that you're implementing for people provides information. And then it comes back to the first question, like, what is alpha? If you're providing people with information, it's how they digest it. How about yourself?
I just want to add to that. I completely agree with how you go around it. It's definitely changed. The space is changing. Is my microphone on?
No, it's working. Definitely.
Is it working? So basically, from the 8th of October, the FCA is putting in this new regulation that basically you can't give British users advice on what they should do or whatever else. And I think everything that we push out has to come with some sort of disclaimer. Do your own research. Maybe that isn't enough anymore. I mean, remember back in 2017, it was just, everything was just DYOR and everything, you know what I mean? Some random mem token that no one even researched. It was just like, yeah, do your own research. It's going to run. I think those days are over now. I think we've got to come up with better, it's got to be informative, first of all. And the information's got to be more in-depth. I mean, this is from our point of view. So this is from the gem hunters. We've been obviously helping people since 2017, and we've definitely gone the same way as you. We were the first to innovate the live community AMA, and that's because we wanted to we wanted to bring the investors and the projects together and allow them to communicate rather than have that third party influencer who was basically saying, buy this shitcoin, it's going to run. And that's one of the ways that we've approached it, is by, as I said, AMAs, Twitter Spaces, reviews, the more informative approach.
I mean, I love that. And Daniel, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. What do you think about this in terms of like the educational aspect, the need for kind of when you're giving people them nuggets of information or 20-page reports, which is outstanding, how would you want them to digest it? Like, what's the responsibility we've got?
Yeah, it's difficult because me and Adam, we do a lot of short form video content as well. So my primary channel is TikTok, which is, short form. So you need to get across, really important pieces of information and data very quickly so they can make an informed decision. And, short form video content's great for introducing projects, but I always lean towards them jumping in on my live streams where I can go way more in depth and give them more information on the projects that I'm looking at. And I think that's really important as well, because you can get a lot of information from short form, but I think you do need to really delve deep. And even myself working with, clients in the space, doing accredited courses to make sure that I am up to scratch with all of the latest crypto regulations, crypto trading, and anything to do with cryptocurrencies. So there is a backing there that I know that I'm confident enough to talk about something, knowing that I've got those accredited courses and I can speak about what, is actually good in the space, or what I think is a good project in the space.
Yeah, I love that. And I think people have always got to bear in mind when it comes to short form content and the dreaded thumbnails, the mouth open, hands up things, people often use those as a gateway into providing information in a longer format. And very often people clip that little second of the thumbnail or the 2-3 seconds on TikTok and manipulate that into a narrative that probably wasn't even said in the first place. So I think you bring up a very valid point. Now, I'm very proud that we're a stage of Northerners. I think, obviously, we know that FCA is coming in. Maybe we should create our own Northern FCA and separate the whole of the UK. I don't know, but that's a topic for another time. Let's talk about the technical analysis versus latest crypto news kind of argument. When it comes to alpha and it comes to kind of making an influence on the decisions you make with how you share the message to your community, how does it work? I'm going to start with the gem hunters, if that's okay.
Yeah. So what we try to do at the gem hunters is we try to prioritize everything into a checklist. So what we put at the top, the things that I personally prioritize, and everyone's got their own opinions, but the absolute number one thing that I prioritize is the community, because you can't buy a community. It has to be created. Number 2 is the team, because they have to create the project, but a team can be bought and can be paid. Number 3 is the narrative, because it has to hit the right narrative for people to want to buy it. So these 3 things need to be right, and one of them can't be off. They all need to be right. And then once they're right, we can then look into the more fundamental technicals, tokenomics, because all of these things can be changed and can be manipulated. and they can be adjusted. But as I said earlier on, for me, the absolute number one thing is community. So what we do is we put everything into a checklist, and then we prioritize, and then we go through, and every single project that we look at, we will use the same method. And it's like investing, isn't it? Yeah. You used the same sort of strategy, and you're disciplined, you have routine, and you stick to that, and that's how you're successful. And I think it's like that with anything, isn't it? You have to stick to a schedule, a routine, and you have to be disciplined, and then if it works, then stick to it. So that's what we do.
I mean, you've given us a lot of alpha there in the way that you actually look at projects. And I think something that stood out to me was teams. And I think in the past, the analogy has been, you look at Formula One cars and drivers, they're nothing without the team. And I know you're into car racing. So how do you perceive that? And like, what are your thoughts on this question?
From my perspective, first of all, the FCA is going to stop everybody talking to each other next week. So this is, I don't know if it's the last Zebu here, but maybe there'll be a Zebu in France or something. But essentially, I think it's kind of a bit pathetic that now we're not allowed to speak to each other anymore. It's like a gagging order. And I'm not a fan of it. I think it's poor piece of regulation that's not properly researched. And I think that pretty much everyone in this room would agree with that. Yeah, can you repeat the question, though?
Yeah, in terms of how you provide the information, so obviously you've got the technical analysis side, but what about the fundamentals, the latest news around the project, or even the space?
Yeah, so from my side, one of the best ways, there's two ways that you can get news. When I was kind of coming up, I would volunteer to help out so many different projects. So maybe I was volunteering for 10, 15 different projects. By volunteering to help so many different projects, you learn what's going on internally within those projects, and therefore you know kind of what's coming up. And then from that, you can gain alpha, and then you can make YouTube videos about it. They like the fact that you are kind of promoting them on YouTube, but at the same time, you're helping your audience by giving them knowledge that is not insider information. Ultimately, we're not a regulated industry. You can do that. It's not against any rule. And so I was always volunteering and helping out in order to get that information. And I guess the other way is make friends with the people that run the companies and in those cases. So from my side, more like just how to find that information. It's not difficult. You just need to be willing to give up your time for free. And that was, in my case, I had no money back in 2016. Well, I had a bit, but not a lot. And I just used to volunteer all of my time for all of these different crypto projects. And what I encourage everybody every year at Zebu to do is, and every year 2 or 3 people will come back to me and they'll say, Jordan, that was a really good piece of advice. I volunteered for 6 different crypto projects. 5 of them went bust, but 1 of them did really well. And that's always the case. Like, most of the darts that you throw are going to miss the board. It's crypto at the end of the day. It's a very experimental industry. But one of those darts will hit, and it will be a really good dart when it comes. So yeah, that's my...
I mean, out of interest, what was the project that really stands out for you back in 2016 that really was the catalyst for your success?
Yeah, this is a good one. So I was pretty early on Ethereum. I was in Ethereum at between $3 and $5. That was great. But I sold all my Ethereum at $100, so that was also not great. But then I used all of that money to gamble in the bull market. I started with 500 quid, something like that, in 2015, 2016. I actually started back in 2013. It's just I lost it all several times. So the one for me that I specifically remember that gave me the most help, and I think it's not quite dead yet, but they don't quite have the funding. Back in the day when Binance was starting up, there was a company called Nulls. CZ was friends with the founder of Nulls, and I started volunteering for Nulls. Now, Binance wasn't that big back then. Binance was just a small exchange. It was all about Coinbase, Bittrex, yeah, Poloniex, Kraken, and BitMEX. Those were kind of the main ones back then, from what I recall. I'm probably missing 1 or 2. But essentially, yeah, Nulls was really good because I used to get up at like 3 or 4 in the morning. I would get on these Chinese Zoom calls with them, and they would tell me like how they're running their blockchain company. So from like an early age, and I'm, it's 2016, 2017? How old am I then? I'm like 20, yeah. So I'm a 20-year-old getting up at 3 a.m. listening to Chinese Zoom calls about, what are you doing, man? Everyone thought I was a complete weirdo. It worked, though. I made a lot of money on the project because I was so early into it. It went from like maybe being 5-10 cents up to being $7. My issue was I was an idiot and just kept buying all the way up. I didn't ever sell any of it. And I've repeated that mistake far too many times. People go, "Oh, you dumb." No, I am an idiot when it comes to like fund management, and that's one of the reasons why I set up Crypto Saving Expert, was to quell my own inability to manage my funds. I have fund managers. I have people that look after my assets, so I can't do dumb stuff with them. So from that perspective, it's cost me a lot of money to set up Crypto Saving Expert, but it was also a good idea in a sense of I lost less money since. But yeah, Knowles was really good. It's all about just putting in the effort. You're not going to get anything if you don't put the effort in. And you've got to, like I was doing that. I was doing YouTube. So I was doing my 3 a.m. Zoom calls with China. I was doing YouTube as soon as I got home from work, and I was working 8 till 6. Wow. And so it was hard work, and that's why I got nearly fired and had to quit, because I was sleeping at work. So.
Well, you've put a lot of hard work in to get to where you're at. I think all of you have. I mean, Danielle, you obviously deliver a lot of the latest crypto news and short bite-sized snippets over on TikTok and other platforms. But let's just touch on that question one more time. When we look at the latest crypto news, the fundamentals around projects, and then a little bit of the other things the guys have spoken about, like what are your thoughts around like alpha around it? Like what is the key piece of information if you're creating a TikTok video, you think that needs to be in that 15, 20-second video when I'm putting it out to my audience?
I think it's them actually, because a lot of my audience are beginners and like, you know, people who are just kind of discovering crypto. So talking, you know, really in depth about, you know, technical analysis and tokenomics, investing schedules and all of this and that and the other, they just don't get it. So for me, I really try and dumb down the, you know, complexity of, you know, what a cryptocurrency is, because I know a lot of techies like to use a lot of jargon that purposely makes it difficult for, you know, people to understand. You know, I have lots of women coming to me being like, I want to understand it, but I just don't get it. And I think it's because it's a lack of understanding, and the language that people use makes it very difficult. So for me, I just want to gather as much information as possible and, you know, make it into short form content that people could understand, that even a 10-year-old could pick it up and be like, oh, I get what she's saying. Even when it comes to understanding what a blockchain is, I really go in detail, because people don't even get it. They don't even understand what a blockchain is. And when I explain it in my way, they're like, oh, it makes a lot of sense. And that was the biggest thing for me. Smart contracts was what really made me click with crypto. Once I understood what smart contracts were, how they worked, then I was like, I understand this now, I get it. And I was able to do more research and understand, you know, what cryptocurrencies are doing and what these businesses are trying to do, especially in like DeFi. That's kind of the big thing that I look into. So yeah, making complex language into really simple terms.
I love that, and I think there's a lot of value in that, for not just in the crypto space, but in life in general. Very often, we overcomplicate things that are very simple and easy to explain, so I absolutely love that. Now, I'm going to go a little bit rogue. These weren't on the questions before, but I think we need to get a bit more juicy in the questions. So when you are looking at tokenomics and you're looking at team tokens and things like this, what exactly are you looking at? Like, we've all mentioned tokenomics within the conversation. Let's get into it. What are you looking at when you're looking at that?
What's amazing is tokenomics and fundamentals have changed so much over the years. I remember coming in 2017, and the way that the projects were made up were completely different how they are now. Everything now is aimed towards deflationary, revenue sharing, staking. It's all about passive income. And I think the narratives are constantly changing, and the projects, the tokenomics, the fundamentals are also constantly changing, and it's really important to understand the macro elements around this and change with it. And I think you've got to have a general understanding of what's happening at that moment, because the space is changing that fast, and to keep up with it, you've got to be, as you were saying before, so laser focused, so tuned in, and you've got to sacrifice all that time, you know, all the people out of Netflix and chilling, and they're using their time in a way where it's just completely wasted. And as you were saying before, I was the same. I was working 9-hour, 10-hour day job every single day, weekends as well. And then I was coming home on the laptop till 2 a.m, 6 hours, 5 hours sleep, 6 hours sleep every single night. And I think you've sort of got to do that to keep up with the space, because it's changing that fast. So yeah, it's sort of.
And I probably want to relate this into like meme and altcoins. And I think when we were in the last bull cycle, we saw cycles of different contracts, like buyback and burns, the Safe Moon contract, where you're getting kickbacks on certain tokens and things like that. And it kicks off kind of smaller projects, smaller caps that really do then create some... What do you look at? And I am directing this at you, because I know some of the calls that you've made have been around some of the themes that are coming round. Like, what were you looking at when you look at those projects?
I think when somebody does something well, 50 people go and copy it. And then the first kind of 6 or 7 of those will do pretty well. And then after that, it'll get slowly worse because it's just saturation of a market. And this is what I find particularly interesting about tokenomics, because everyone goes, oh, my token's special, my token's unique. But the thing is, if 50 people go and copy your idea, your token's not special, it's not unique, and ultimately your deflationary supply has been hugely inflated by all of those copies that have come out. You need, I think, because people use very simple token models, because maybe there's a significant lack of developers in the space, which is contributing to these really simple token models, making them very easy to copy. You can literally go on a website right now and deploy a smart contract and issue 1 million tokens or whatever with some pretty complex stuff on it these days, because it's become very easy. It's not like a few years ago, if you wanted to deploy a token, you had to go onto GitHub, copy a bunch of code. I mean, if you're a smart guy, you don't need to copy the code, you can write it. But the point is, it used to be a little bit more convoluted than what it is now. Now you can literally just tick, 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 and then done. So I think that you have supply inflation that comes from other projects. So when, for example, a good example would be Steppen. Steppen comes out. It is the first of its kind. People walking around with phones in their pockets, earning money. Amazing. And it's inflationary, but because it's growing in users so fast, it's deflationary because it's growing in users faster than what the token is getting put out there into supply. So that was good. The problem was Sweatcoin came along. Then all these other ones came along. And actually, Steppen wasn't even the first. DFIT was the first. And DFIT's market cap now is what? 1 million, and so it's like really small. Steppen's market cap is still in the hundreds of millions, but that's just because they raised loads of money on the back end and can afford to support the token price. There's a lot of that goes on as well. But yeah, the supply inflation that we have is a huge issue with people copying each other. But it's also a way that is sustainably made to make money, but predatory VCs, literally. So one person come up with a good idea, and there are little VC factories in Asia, and they basically just, oh, that's a good one, copy it, and then copy it. And this is also a bit of a shame for the industry, because it is something that's holding it back, because it is really easy to replicate so many different kinds of business. And so a good part to add to this would be, so crypto projects are really easy to copy. You can copy any crypto project like that. You can just copy it. It's not difficult. But what is difficult is putting loads of words down, and on paper, for example. My development cost for Crypto Saving Expert is probably 10 times higher than what it is to develop an app like Steppen. And Steppen's, the main problem with Steppen was they needed to put something in their app that stopped people cheating by putting the phone in the car and whatnot. So they had to put a speed restriction on it. But again, all of these things, there was a time when Steppen had none of these restrictions, where a guy that I know went out and just used 200 phones that he had, because he was running these bot farms, used 200 phones that he had, plugged them into Steppen's app, and then just drove around. And he just made loads of money. And that was a really good idea for a short period of time, and then they closed the loophole. That's why I think all of this stuff is really experimental, but I think that for the long term, for this industry to be sustainable, one of the things the FCA doesn't like about it is you have just a bunch of scammers copying each other, and that's why they go, well, you're all scammers, and that's not the case. The FCA is blind, and they can't seem to tell the difference between a scam and not a scam, and ultimately they're an underfunded organisation as well, so I don't understand how they're going to enforce anything, so we'll see. Anyway,
little trickle of applause there. Was that for the FCA or for what he said? I don't know.
By the way, I remember DFIT had been around for over a year before Steppen even came out. And then when Steppen came out, as you said, they got the funding, they got Binance, they got all these major players, and that's what made the difference. It was nothing to do with the fundamentals.
But you know why Binance only listed them? Because Binance had invested in seed round, and Binance didn't invest in DFIT seed round, so they didn't fucking lift DFIT. So that's like how stuff works. If I've got my hand in your pocket, I'm going to do you a favour, and that's how it. That's a bit of a weird analogy, but
it was a little bit.
It.
Yeah, I like it. And we'll probably end that one there and move on to the next question on that note. So let's move on to one more thing, and we're going to start off over there, Danielle. But like where we're at now, we're obviously at a real world event, and this might not be something in the future that I don't know is going to be possible. Who knows? We're waiting to see how the outland and the land lays with the FCA. But when it comes to alpha, like geographically, obviously we're all from all over. We're all from the great Republic of the North, which is fantastic. But on a serious note, I've come from Dubai, and I know I get an awful lot of great conversations when I'm talking to people about crypto over there because it's much more open. You're encouraged to talk about it, and frankly, people want to see each other do well. Where's the best place you've been and got your alpha from in the real world, Danielle?
In the real world, well, places like this, to be honest, meeting people like you guys, and getting to know what are the new and up and coming projects. There's a lot of sponsors downstairs. Speaking to them, seeing what they're doing, but also we live in a world where we have social media, we have like online, we have Zoom. A lot of my alpha, I think I tied it up the other day. I've had like over 280 calls with different crypto companies in the last year. So that's 280 conversations that I've had with individual builders in the space, and every single one of them will give me some kind of tidbit or what they're doing, what they're looking at. So the biggest thing is to just network with people and understand what it is that other people are building, because the innovations that's going on right now, even though we're in a bear market, I'm so bullish on the builders because there's, that much innovation going on. And I know it because I'm speaking to these people on the daily, and, people that are at home just, maybe picking up their first understanding of cryptocurrency don't have that, but they will get that when they really start researching and just having the conversations. People love to speak to people, and that's what I love about the Web3 community. Everyone's so open and honest. They'll give you everything.
Yeah. How about yourself?
I keep saying it's very important to find your people, to understand other people, and to have that relatability. I was an electrician for 15 years, and people always say, how the hell are you in this industry now? Because I was an online gamer behind the scenes, and I feel like crypto correlates with that industry, and that's why I'm really bullish on the GameFi metaverse. I feel like that's going to cross over well, because, as you were saying then, it's really important to speak to people and to network. If you look at most people, they're sort of on Facebook with their 100 friends and they just stick to their little clique. You have to spread your horizons, and you have to move around, and you have to speak to as many people as you can to understand what they're doing, get perspective from them, learn from them, and then you can use that on your journey to progress. And it's the same in crypto. Literally, get on Telegram, get on Discord, get on Twitter, follow as many people that are interesting, that are bringing the vibes, that are motivating you, that are inspiring you, that are giving you good, genuine information, and then put notifications on the best of them. But I wouldn't just follow anyone and everyone, because then your feed will just be full of random noise and memes and crap that's not gonna help you. I think it's really important that understanding that this whole space is community driven, and it's all about community. It's all about helping each other, working together, being together, and pushing together. And it's absolutely beautiful when you're involved in that at that level, because you can look back at your own journey and understand that you shared that with other people, and that is the most amazing thing. That is life, isn't it?
I love that. How about yourself?
From my side, just an anecdotal thing would be when I wanted to know what other people knew, because I was always like, you go into a conversation with somebody and like they know something you don't, and so you're not quite on the same wavelength. But one of the things that I would do when I was like kind of researching people, because if you want to make the same money that someone else does, or you want to have the same success someone else does, you need to consume the same content that they do. I would just go on to, I'd make separate Twitter profiles, I would go on, I would follow every single person that somebody that I liked followed, and then I would consume the same content that they do, and then I would know the same things that they do. And then from doing that, that's honestly one of the best tactics I can give to anybody, is you want to know what I know, follow the people that I follow. And then you'll, like, don't do it on your own account, make separate accounts, and then follow them, and then have one account called TMG follower or whatever, and then one account called BiT SHaMaN follower, and then another one called Danielle Lukins follower, and then follow the people that they follow, so you'll consume the same content as what they do. It's just you can talk to people all you want. You'll learn little bits and stuff, but really, if you want to know what they know, you've got to learn what they learn.
I think that's a really, really great point. Thanks for sharing that with us. It's like we communicated before this, because the next question is, and I don't want you to bottle out on this, it can't be the people on the stage, the top 3 content creators that you do follow that provide that alpha. And I want to start with you, Danielle. Sorry about this, but, this is what we want, a bit of juice.
I can't do that because I started my crypto journey by actually listening to Jordan. So he was one of the first people that I followed. So there's another guy on YouTube called Elio Trades. I think he's quite good. He goes quite in depth with projects. Coin Bureau is a really good one as well if you want to understand, in depth what a particular project does. And he does a lot of macroeconomics, which I think is really important as well. I think you need to understand what's actually going on in the economy to be successful in the crypto markets, because it's like an overarching thing. But who else? There's a guy on TikTok called Jay Iverson. He's really young, but he's a really up and coming creator, and he gives me alpha all the time. He just does so much research. It's unbelievable. So he's a really good one to follow as well.
Thanks for sharing, and congrats on making the top 3, by the way. How about yourself?
Yeah, I like there's a few YouTube channels that I love. The first one is New Kids on the Blockchain. They're actually here at this conference. They're worth following. They cover projects, narratives, and they break it all down. There's Into the Cryptoverse. Is it Benjamin Cohen? Benjamin Cohen. He's a rocket scientist. He breaks everything down into, it's more technical, but he has a lot of his own charts and patterns that he uses, and he explains things in a more technical, but it does delve in, and it really helps. And if you can get past the marketing gimmick, I keep saying Crypto Crew University. And I know some people are going to go, and I knew
I've made a video about this guy. It's a bit of an old one, but if you type in him exposed, then
I knew you'd do that. I actually like him because he breaks everything down, but there's a marketing gimmick. And I find that with a lot of channels, there are marketing gimmicks, and it does put you off but you've got, obviously, to be able to see...
You've got to look through it. You've got to look through it.
You have to look, you have to look. Because at the end of the day, they are trying to build a business and they are trying to make money. So I do understand it to an extent, but I also think if you're that good at trading, then why do you need the bit? Then why aren't you making
I know, but I also understand from Steve's perspective, who runs Crypto Crew University, he obviously wants to buy new Lambos and stuff, so I get it. He needs to sell these really expensive stuff. I think that my problem with that was it was overpriced, but it's not that the content he produced is bad. It's like really good for new people and for people that are just consistently looking at the markets. It's just more that, it's really expensive.
Right, before this gets too juicy, what's your top 3?
Myself, crypto saving expert, BiT SHaMaN and Danielle.
Oh, you bottled it there, but I'm going to put you under the pump a little bit, just a little bit. Go on, your top 3.
What would I say is my top 3? I mean, I have to say crypto saving expert's one of them.
Okay, we'll take that.
Yeah, just because I spent so much sodding money on that thing, it will work eventually. And it's not. Other people that I follow. BitBoy, because it's hilarious. Who else? It's a difficult one. I follow so many people, and Lady of Crypto is another good one in terms of she's
in
just
the orange,
yeah. But she's another good one that puts out very good regular content. It's been an interesting change in the market because, like for myself, I used to make daily videos on 2 separate YouTube channels, and now I just can't be bothered doing that because, it's not seems so important anymore. I'm trying to get back to the daily ones on the smaller channel, but we'll go back to the main channel at some point soon. There's just the market's not there to support it. You can talk about altcoins all you want, but you just get so much hate because it just go down. So it's like you can say, "Oh, I like this. You made me put my life savings into this. You're a horrible person." And I didn't make me do anything, man. You just did it on your own. It has nothing to do with me. But yeah, it's one of them. And yeah, who else? I want to say Rover is good for news, and his actual YouTube channel is good. You just got to look past the constant shills. But again, with all the YouTubers, you've got to understand these people have to make money. It's not a free thing. They're not doing it voluntarily. You've got to understand it is a business. And people get hate for trying to make money, and it's ridiculous, is that. Put yourself in their shoes. But also what I would say is having a popular Twitter profile And following people and engaging with people. So how to grow on Twitter is another good point. Respond, be a reply guy, and reply, but not with the, like emojis and shit. Actually have a proper response to people, and you will start growing on Twitter and have a catchy profile picture and a good name, not with underscores and stuff in it. It needs to be one short word, less than 8 letters. Mine's too long, and you will grow. And then from there, you can again you'll start be able to leverage that following that you get. So I would focus mostly on that. So follow people that other people follow.
I like that. Really, last question, I promise, last one. I really want to put you under the pump. Give me one bit of alpha before we leave the stage today, and then we're going to wrap everything up.
Liquid staking derivatives.
Interesting.
Revenue sharing. We've just seen Unibot go to the moon. Now we're seeing Banana Gun take the same journey. That isn't a shill, by the way.
I posted a very large research report about a coin called NXRA in Crypto Saving Experts Discord. I'd recommend you go and read that research report. It's a very interesting research report, and it's going to have a good future. People don't know. It used to be called ALBT, Alliance, but it's called Alliance Block still. But then they got hacked like a year and a bit ago, and it's been very quiet ever since. But they are it'll be a giant in the future, I think, from my perspective. Not financial advice. Yeah.
I just want to say a massive thank you. You've been so open, honest. We've had some fun. I say a massive thank you to everybody that came and watched this as well live today. It's been an amazing panel, in my opinion. So thank you so much for your time and travelling from all over, from the Central Republic of the North, wherever we've all come from. It's been amazing. Right, I think one thing that we all took from today is shaking each other's hands, having conversations with people. Please make sure you make the most of this fantastic event. And congratulations to Zebu for putting on an amazing facility for us all today. Thank you so much.